Hey guys, welcome to DreamCoin, where we show how to invest for a better tomorrow. My name's Tyler, and today we're going to be going over some updates with Orphazyme, just because it's been a little while now since I've last covered them, and they've had a string of PR releases over the last 2 months, essentially, that set them up for possibly having a rebound towards the end of the year if they can actually effectively pull off what they're planning to do as a company. So to kind of begin on the more recent price action before we get into a little bit of the older news, we have been seeing some big movements in the stock today, and this is due to the fact that they've readjusted recently when they're going to be giving their interim report for the company, and that is going to be towards the end of the month, around August 31st. We can see that information reflected here on their website as well. Obviously, this is about a week old now from when they announced this, but the recent price action has suggested not only some movement from a renewed interest in the stock due to some of their most recent stuff they've been giving, and just due to the fact that we could just be seeing either shorts exiting or covering some of their positions, as they could expect the stock to be moving forward. And so between both of those, that would be my main hypothesis for why the stock has been moving up a decent amount, specifically today, where it was up about 40% at one point. Some of the more significant news that came out that's a little bit older was towards the end of June, where they came out with a 36-month data from some of their studies, which supports their prior studies of the shorter timelines of about 12 months. And as compared to routine clinical settings where there was a mean increase of 5.2 points for the type of data that they look for in indicators for people with NPC, we also have that they were only having a mean change of 3.5 points through their own treatment. This can be clinically significant because it backs up their shorter term data and also shows that it has a possibly clinical substantial point from where the treatment could be something that actually does provide value, although the FDA wanted more data to back up this claim when they officially gave them their CRL back a couple months ago. Mark Peterson, who is a professor of neurology, pediatrics, and medical genetics, also came out in the same report and backed up the claims that this data was clinically meaningful, and the longer term data shows an encouraging sign for anybody afflicted with Niemann-Pick disease. What is going to help keep the company afloat is the fact that they are restructuring, which included, unfortunately, laying some people off, and a action that would go for cutting some of their budgets that they would need to do for where they can meaningfully sustain until they can possibly get approval and actually commercialize / market their drug. They had initially stated this a couple months ago when they got announced to have a CRL, and so this isn't very surprising considering they said they were going to have to substantially cut back on some of their resources. And so I don't think this should really shock anybody, and it doesn't look like they're going to be in too much of a financial rough spot as compared to what they initially estimated, because they said their financial outlook is appearing to be about the same. Anything that you were wondering about how the company feels for themselves financially for the future can be found referencing back to that conference call when they kind of went over what they thought would happen towards the end of the year. As we look at how the stock traded today, they had a huge jump where they went from $4 and actually peaked around $6.50, and this just seemed like some general buyer influence coming in. It wasn't anything too crazy, but obviously just seeing something that's been down here as low as $3.96 within the last week would provide for some excitement in the stock, especially with that being almost doubling your amount for buying in from that bottom to the top. Some key supports that I'm seeing here are obviously going to be roughly around this $4 area, because this has basically been on a downtrend since that end of June news that came out between the data and the fact that they're restructuring and everything. So this seems to be the bottom area roughly where we're seeing $4. We've got a couple more supports higher up where I'm seeing roughly about $4.60 as a higher support, and then roughly $5 to $5.10 is going to be a softer support than the other two. Their main key resistance that has also been a previous support for the stock is roughly that $6.40 to $6.50 area, and so if they can break above that going into the end of the month, I could see some possible possible support or really just a run higher to going up in stock price. If they were able to break through that with some decent strength, I could see the next run up being roughly about $7 as the next significant resistance, and then that would obviously give it a nice gap between $7 and $9 from where the previous like large resistances have resided. And so depending on if it can hold this action, I'm going to be looking for a channel roughly of $4.60 and $6.40, and then that could kind of be the channel you look for going towards the end of the month. As always with my analysis, if it breaks these supports, you should be worrying about possible downtrends in the stock more from the current levels, and if it repetitively tests that resistance line that we have drawn there, that we could be seeing a case where it has more upward movement coming in the next couple weeks. Long term, my outlook on the stock is the same. I think they're going to be very risky for long term. You're basically playing for EU approval towards the end of the year whenever they get that submitted in, and if they don't get that, they're pretty much going to be ruined as a company because they're not going to have the financial stability to stay on top. There is obviously the concern where they could possibly do a share offering at some point in the future to actually just raise money, so that could further dilute the stock price if you're holding long. So it's just a general concern for the company as a whole. I would obviously love for a company like this to get approval. I think they did get shortchanged with the FDA decision because their data, especially with the new stuff they've been coming out with, has looked pretty positive and can kind of back itself up over numerous time periods. So hopefully this does go towards the EUA route. I would just be looking very cautiously at the stock for the moment for the long term, unless you can get it on some very nice discounts like is when it dropped under this $4 area. Long term, if they can get EU approval and FDA approval, I could see this sitting 20 to 30 bucks as a stock, but as of now, I'm not going to be very confident in that. So I would just be watching the stocks trading over time. I'm going to be coming out with a bunch of new updates on some earnings reports and just general company updates on a lot of the stocks that I've been going over previously on the channel, including Senseonics and Fisker and things like Marin Software. And so if that's what you're interested in, make sure you check those out when those do drop. And I'll still be covering companies like this from time to time, although it won't be very often because I try to get everything together with significant news as it comes through. Other than that, that's going to do it for me in this video today, guys, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.